good morning. We're down at Andromeda and we have Ed Hislop, our old friend Ed, who is the Cummins expert, coming in a few days. To check out some of the problems we've been chasing since we've been back, and it's sort of helping to determine what we do with Andromeda this winter. There's still a slight possibility we take Andromeda down the river and leave her down around Orange Beach or something till after the holidays, and then go spend the winter messing around the Gulf in Florida and hopefully back to the Bahamas. But we have a few engine issues and a few electronics issues that we're working through, and until we get some answers on those, we can't really make a decision. We may have to put Andromeda in storage here in Michigan and get some things done this winter. So today we're taking her out for a test spin, see if some of the things that we've tried made any difference. And it's a nice day on the lake, so we're gonna get off the dock here and enjoy some time on the water. So as we were just miles from coming home and crossing our wake, the starboard engine would not go any more than about half the RPMs it normally does. So for some reason it would idle fine, it would even do better than idle, but it would only get about half power. It would bog down, it stayed running, it never struggled. We came down here and switched over the ray cores. We're fortunate to have this double ray core system where if one clogs up we can switch it over, and that did not make any difference. And I've looked in the bowls numerous times and there's no debris, the filters are clean. However, I have not replaced them, so we're gonna test Andromeda out this morning, and that will be one of the things I try. Also, on the front of the engine there is a water fuel separator, and we were getting bounced around so bad I'm halfway wondering if that was the issue. But again, we're going to get her out there and run her through some different RPMs and see if any of that makes a difference. We really liked our house battery system and it seems to work great most of the time, but this Victron Multiplus seems to have maybe a software error or something we're missing, but once in a while it just won't charge, or if we're not paying attention or we're gone from the boat for a couple days, we may come down and find the batteries pretty well drained. It can be fixed really quickly by resetting everything, disconnecting the batteries and reconnecting them, but that shouldn't happen. So that is also something we need to solve before we are comfortable taking the boat on a long journey again. All right, well, the engines are warming up. She started right up. She sounds happy. We're gonna let those warm up for a while because we haven't run her in a while. And now I'm going to disconnect us from shore power and turn on the house battery system. Our last few trips before we wrapped up our loop, the house battery inverter just wouldn't work. The lights would come on, about 5 minutes would go by, everything would shut off. So I'm not quite sure what was going on there, but we have reset everything. I've disconnected it and rehooked it up. So now I'm hoping for our little trip here today that I can just go ahead, turn the inverter on, and that everything will run like it should. So we're about to test that out now. Not appear to be working, so that is something we're going to have to sort through. For some reason, when it's time to switch the house batteries to inverter, we don't get 120 volts, so that's not good. So even after resetting a few things and trying a few things, the inverter's not working. The Victron Multiplus that we have is an inverter charger, and it is charging the battery and keeping them charged, but when we disconnect from shore power and try and turn the inverter on, it doesn't work. 12-volt circuits don't work, and our 120 circuits don't work. So that is a problem. We're going to need a tech on that, or to call Victron and try and work through some troubleshooting, but that will not work. There's no way for us to anchor now without running the generator. Actually, there's no way for us to even leave the dock without running the generator, because our refrigeration is 110. So to keep our fridge and freezer running, we have to start the Jenny. So we got to sort that one out too.
Andromeda has 3 ways to produce power to supply her 110 volt and 220 volt circuits. We can connect to 50 amp shore power, we can run the generator, or we can use the house batteries. Andromeda was not manufactured with a house battery system. This C-Ray model was designed to either be docked on shore power or run the generator 24/7 while not connected to dock power. So in 2023, before leaving on the Great Loop, we installed a house battery bank to be able to have power while underway or while on anchor without running the generator. The most critical piece of electrical equipment that needs to always be powered on is our refrigeration. There is a dedicated 110 volt circuit that powers our fridge and freezer. The main reason for adding our house batteries was to be able to keep our food cold or frozen while underway or on anchor without running the generator. On some legs of our loop, we were underway for over 8 hours. We did not want to put 4, 6, or 8 hours on the Jenny every trip. We also did not want to be that one boat in every anchorage running the generator through the night and ruining a peaceful and serene anchoring experience for everyone.
We did some of the house battery work ourselves, but we did have the system professionally designed and most of it professionally installed. It was not cheap. For most of our trip, it worked flawlessly and as designed. It was only about the last 8 or 10 legs of our loop that it began cutting out on us, or not working at all. Most times, disconnecting the house batteries, letting everything sit for a half hour or so, would be enough to reset the Victron Multiplus and the system would work fine. Now, even after trying to reset the system, we are not able to invert the house battery power, and the only way we can leave the dock and have power is to use our generator.
So now we have the generator running. I'm not exactly sure what that voltmeter is doing or why it's doing that. I do think that's the starboard side. I mean, I'm not exactly sure. It's not labeled, but I've never noticed it doing that before, but that can't be good. So troubleshooting continues. Well, good news. We're off the dock. We're cruising at about 20 knots. Feels fantastic to be back out on the water, and Andromeda must be ready to go too, because bogging down on our starboard engine is gone. I'm not sure exactly why. We didn't really do much. We did sit for a while, so maybe whatever settled in the filter or the water separator. We did smell a real turpentine smell when we picked up the RPM, so maybe she just needed to blow it out. But she's running great. We're running north up the coast right now in Lake Michigan, and probably got just less than a 1 foot chop. Not bad, and man, does it feel good to be out here. Everything seems to be running fine. We spun the boat around. We're heading south. So engines, pressures, the oil pressure, the engine temperature, the voltage, everything on the engine systems seems to be running correctly. She sounds really good, and we got her kind of pointed south. We slowed her down to about 7.5 knots. It's just beautiful out today, so we're just kind of enjoying the coastline. Kathy's down making lunch, and sort of feels like we're traveling again, so it's kind of a nice way to spend a summer day. But still, the battery issue, the house battery system issue, is a thing, and The alternator, the Belmar high output alternator, appears to be charging the house bank as designed. So it really comes down to when we have this Victron Multi-Plus on the inverter charger setting. When it's on charger only, it seems to be working fine. When it's on inverter charger, the charger has a mind of its own and the inverter didn't come on today. And that's kind of what we were experiencing through the last legs of our loop, is that some days it would click on, no problem, and some days it wouldn't come on, and some days it would come on and then shut off. So I'm not sure what it is. I'm being told it could be a software issue within the Victron itself, but it's really hard to get anyone local to come service it or diagnose it or help us load up the software. So something I'm searching the corners of the web for, trying to solve myself. It's not going as smooth as I hope, but anyway, for today, to be cruising down the shoreline, 7 knots in the sun, calm seas, doesn't get any better. That's boat life. We had a nice cruise down the shore at 7 knots, had some lunch, and we thought we'd give her one more test run and make a big circle out in front of the harbor, bring her up to speed, and same issue. I don't know if the injector's slowed up or what's going on. I'm not that familiar with what would cause this, so it's obviously a fuel problem, and I don't know if there's some loading or some blockage. There's something's crusty inside the engine, I'm not sure, but good news is in a couple days Ed will come up here, we'll take it for a test run, and maybe he's got some ideas. Maybe it's something simple I can fix myself, but unfortunately the problem is bad. Oh, safely back at the dock. Kathy's running Ollie up to do a little bathroom break. Felt great to get the boat back out on the water, but our list of projects for this winter, or by some miracle late summer, fall, hasn't got any smaller. It was great that the engines perked right up and got us up on plane, but after we cruised at a slow speed for a while, something went screwy. I did a couple tests where I put the boat in neutral, took it out of gear, and just revved the starboard engine up, and it pinned out at 2300. So for some reason under load on that engine, it just won't go past 1400 RPMs, or from time to time it has that problem. So that's sort of our little shakedown for today. Felt good to get the boat out, but we're gonna start putting together a plan here of getting her serviced. Our friend Ed is coming in a few days. We'll do a sea trial with him and then have a real exact list of exactly what Andromeda needs, and see if, you know, is winter travel a possibility? Are we heading down the river, or will we be putting her on the hard for the winter and work on things and be ready to go next fall? So that's where things stand now. Well, good morning. We're down on Andromeda. It's a Monday morning in July, and our old friend Ed Hislop will be here any minute to help us diagnose the engines and sort of give Andromeda a once-over.
We first met Ed during our sea trial to purchase Andromeda a few years ago. Ed is a retired Cummins engineer who was part of the team that originally designed the Cummins QSM11 marine engine.
Ed is a good friend and always available for a quick call or text when we have questions about our engines. His experience and in-depth knowledge of the Cummins QSM11 engine is impressive, and we are fortunate to have him coming today to help us solve this starboard engine mystery.
Kathy is outside filling the water tanks because of the many things that weren't working. Is our digital water gauge readout started reading nothing, so we don't know how much is in there. So our freshwater tank was reading empty, and we have this filter with a gallon counter in it. So we put about 1/4 of a tank in there. We didn't realize the tank was empty. We've been tied to the dock for so long. But when we do that, we add 1/4 tablespoon of bleach per gallon into the tank. So hopefully we get out there bouncing around in the waves and mix that bleach in with the water a little bit. We tried a gallon counter on the hose. That wasn't working, so we're going to fill the tank all the way up so we know it's full and see if the reader reads anything different or if it says empty. But hopefully here in a few minutes we'll get the engine started and get underway. It's a little breezier than we were hoping and a little rainy today, but we got to get her out there and run through some of these checks so we know what's going on, and so we know exactly what work needs to be done. So just waiting on Ed. One of the reasons Ed is coming is he suggested an engine alignment for both engines. When we had the port engine repaired, obviously they did a engine alignment to get things back in order to get us underway, but it's good after all those miles, and if we're getting some service done, we're just going to check the engine alignment. Doesn't seem to be any problems. Marks I've put on the bolts haven't moved, but we get weird stuff like, you know, the belts aren't aligned, or if it's the wrong size belt or something. But those belts shouldn't deteriorate that much, at least in my opinion, but we're going to get a professional opinion on that. So we're going to check for some vibrations today when we go out. We hadn't felt any as we were coming around and completing our trip, but now that we're here and we're talking about getting some work done, that is one of the things we're going to check. You can see here where I've marked the bolts with a white paint marker, and nothing has moved. But after all those miles and bouncing around in all those waves, it's probably a good idea to have the alignment checked. This is over on the port engine, and something I've been fighting with for a while, but the dipstick where it goes in to check the oil has a nut on it and seems to leak from there quite a bit. So I don't know if I've tightened it. It'll stop leaking if I tighten it, but I don't know if there's supposed to be a little rubber gasket in there or if the threads are just worn out or what. So I'm going to tighten that down again, see if we can get the oil to stop leaking out. It's a little alarming when you see the oil in there, but it truly is just leaking from the fill tube. So I'm going to tighten all that up and see if we can get that to stop. But that's another item that showed up late in our journey, and we kind of just let it ride till we got home. Looking over at the port engine and the port trans, we've had a leak since the repairs. Looks pretty bad now because the pad has absorbed it and spread it out, but it's just a small leak. I can't exactly even figure out where it's coming from because it's so small and it doesn't really drip. We just noticed the trans fluid on the pad, so that is something we're tracking. And then maybe one of the big ones that we've had a problem with since we bought it, we've known about this since we purchased Andromeda, and there is a exhaust leak on the starboard engine. And what that means is we get this exhaust soot buildup. We clean it, and it comes back. What we're hoping is that it's the turbo, because there's a few gaskets in there that would make it an easy fix. But the good news would be is if we found out it's a turbo exhaust leak, that would be sort of an easier fix with a gasket. Otherwise, if it's manifold or something like that, it's a little bit more of a project. It can be done without lifting up the floor, and we've talked to some guys in Annapolis who do it quite regularly, but again, the ideal fix would be the turbo gasket. Hopefully that's what it is. and I do see quite a bit of soot around the turbo. So I'm kind of hoping that's it. If not, it would mean some kind of manifold or head gasket that's leaking. It's a little bit bigger project, but that is something we think we really need to solve before we put a whole lot of miles back on her. We are in the aft rudder well on the port side where we had the repairs done. Looks like we may have fixed the packing nut situation. That packing nut just continued to trickle water. Not much, I mean not even enough for the bilge, but it didn't seem like the nuts would seal all the way. And then our trim tab pump, as you can see on the floor, seems to drip a little bit of fluid down in the well. We had one of the solenoids repaired in Annapolis. It needs to be hand tightened. I'm guessing that's the situation again, but if it continues to keep getting loose, or possibly if it's an O-ring or something, we're just going to want to replace it. But you can see the fluid level's okay, and the trim tabs work fine. We just find this fluid in our rudder well from time to time. Well, we had our sea trial with Ed Hislop. We were busy taking notes and writing things down, and Ed spent a few hours here. I wish we'd have got more footage because he's just a wealth of information. But the big problem of the starboard engine under load only going up to about half the normal RPMs was something so stupid, it's even a little embarrassing that I didn't check it. But the air filter was clogged. It was clogged so bad that the engine was trying to suck it in. It collapsed under the pressure. And the reason it was clogged is one of the big reasons we're debating on whether we need to take Andromeda down the river yet this fall or put her on the hard and have a major repair done. When we purchased Andromeda, we knew there was a small exhaust leak on the starboard engine. It wasn't bad. We would just clean up the soot every couple of weeks, and it wasn't very much. There was never any smoke, and the only reason we could tell is because there was a little bit of exhaust soot on the transmission once in a while. So we'd keep it clean, we'd monitor it, but after 6,000 miles on the engines, it appears to have gotten worse and worse. Again, it's not smoking, but the amount of soot that comes out is bad, and it's clogging up the air filter, which is right next to it. So that's not good, and we can't travel a long distance without worrying about whether that soot packs our air filter. So what was happening is there's a high temperature sensor on the head, basically, that only allows the engine to go to half RPMs because it was sensing that it wasn't getting enough air and the temperature was rising. We didn't see it on the gauges, but internally the engine knew not to go any higher. So that leaves us with a big question. Do we get the boat down the river back to the Orange Beach area where we have a bunch of contacts and have the exhaust leak worked on there, or do we put the boat on the hard here in Michigan for the winter and have the exhaust leak worked on over the winter and make plans to head down the river next fall? So we're going to get down in the engine room today, do a little cleaning, get things organized, and check some other things out that Ed had mentioned. And we're still really trying to communicate with each other and process exactly what we want to do with the boat this fall. It's very hard for us after the loop to consider not having the boat. We're on the boat most of the time here at the summer. We've been barely out to the house. So, but anyway, today we're doing a few boat projects, seeing what we can't get tidied up and what can't get done ourselves, and really make a comprehensive list of the work that needs to be done either this winter, or if we get the boat south, can we take it somewhere to have the work done, maybe with some of the contractors we've used before. So this is our starboard engine, and you can see the exhaust soot that builds up there. Now that was very minimal in the beginning. Again, we knew from the survey that we had a bit of a leak there, but the problem is whether it's coming from the turbo, which is that tinfoil looking thing, that housing there, but you can see the real buildup there, and we can't tell for sure if that's coming from the manifold or from the turbo. As you come around the exhaust, you can see the turbo. There's quite a bit of exhaust leak that builds up in there, or the soot, and you can see on our air filter the proximity. So as that leaks, it sucks into the air filter and eventually clogged it up. So we have a new one on there now. We're going to have to keep a real close eye on it. That reset button was red, and again, I'm a little embarrassed to say that that's what the cause was, because it should have been part of my pre-flight checklist, and it wasn't in the past, and it is now. It's very easy to check the port side because it's right in the runway, so it's a little dirty but not bad. I can still see light through it. It is picking up exhaust on this side from the leak, but the inside is pretty clean, and you can see how clean this turbo and housing all are because that side doesn't leak. So in my checks, when I come down to do the oil checks or the trans fluid checks in the morning and check all the wiring harnesses, I guess I sort of look at this air filter and think everything's okay, but you can see that you can't see that starboard outboard air filter unless you stick your head up and over the exhaust and inside and put your eyes on the air filter, which, like I said, I'm embarrassed to say that that wasn't part of our checks, but you can bet from now on it will be. One of the things I'm getting ready to clean up now is our oil fill tube. So you can see down there with our pads that we keep under the engine, I noticed a leak. I've noticed that before. You can see it dripping down there and splattered all over. During our sea trial, the lid of our filler popped off. I don't know if the rubber fitting is getting bad, but thank goodness this hose stopped that cap from popping out, or we'd have had oil everywhere. We've got a pretty bad mess from it getting loose. We're going to clean that up today and make sure that that oil filler plug is in there securely, or if it needs a new one. The other thing I had fixed en route during our loop was those nuts on the base of the dipstick tube. They're like locking nuts. And they loosen up from time to time, and a little oil comes out of there. So we're going to tidy all that up, make sure it's tight, and make sure that that filler cap fits in there snug to avoid this mess in the future. So got the area all cleaned up as best we could, and we can watch for new drips that way. That is the starboard side plug cap. I've moved the port one over here. It's just easier to get to, and we can monitor it a little bit better. So I got it in there nice and tight, but I do need a new cap. The rubber on this one has expanded, So getting one of those on order today, but we were able to get that all tightened back up and cleaned up, so we can keep an eye on that. Well, the house battery system seems to be working okay when it's on shore power and the switch on the Victron is turned on, which in the on position allows it to be a charger and an inverter. So you can see it's keeping the correct temp. The batteries are fully charged, and there's a 15 amp or so draw because we do have a few 12 volt circuits on. So what that means is the charger function of the Victron is keeping up with whatever loads we're putting on the battery at the moment, keeping the bank fully charged. You can see down here on the Victron display that the shore power is coming in, going to the Victron, and going into the house batteries at whatever rate we're using. So everything seems to function okay on the charging end. I'm going to dig into this a little bit today and see if I can't troubleshoot it, but that may be something we need to take to an electrician or a Victron service center to have looked at. Behind the Victron is a big bus style fuse. I'm going to check that. That was one suggestion. It's puzzling to me that if that was the problem, why the charger would still work, but I'm sorting that out. So I'm going to check that fuse real quick and see if that's our problem. Well, the fuse seems to be fine. So now it's on to tech support or the forums or whoever I can get a hold of. Maybe there's a fuse inside the unit or a reset or something I'm missing, but you can see here on the switch, charger only, off or on. When it's in on, it works as a charger inverter depending on how we switch it at the panel. And again, the charging side seems to work fine. Right now, the house batteries, or charger is on. It's in float mode, which means the batteries are fully charged and it's just got a trickle going in. But the minute I switch it over to inverter at the panel, we get nothing. All the lights go off and we're drawing down our 12 volt circuits, and we have no 120 circuits, which means we have no refrigeration. So I'm going to dig in a little bit, get on the forums, get on the tech support and see what I can find. Otherwise it may have to go in for service. I just got off the phone with Bob Campbell. And we are basically doing a total reboot on the Victron. We have killed the AC power at the breaker. We've turned off the battery switch so that no DC draw is going into the unit. I also took the power from the remote display off, I think, but I can't find exactly where that connects in. So I disconnected these two wires and disconnected this data cable, and it appears that no 12 volt draw is coming into the unit, which Bob says will allow all these chips and capacitors to fully drain, and which emulates a factory reset. So we're going to let that sit for about a half hour, maybe an hour, and then power it all back up, and hopefully that's enough to trip the inverter into behaving. Well, unfortunately the inverter did not kick on, so for the time being, until I can get some better answers from Victron or Victron service here, we're going to have to run the generator, which renders our entire house battery system useless. And it's kind of a bummer after everything we went through to put it in, but hopefully it's a simple fix. If not, the inverter is under warranty and who knows what happened, but for now, generator.
60 days ago, we crossed our wake and completed our Great Loop adventure. We are now planning and dreaming of leaving Ludington this fall and heading down the river system to spend the winter down south and start our second Great Loop. Andromeda is in pretty good shape overall after completing such a long trip. Most of the items we need to take care of are normal wear and tear maintenance items on a boat, and most of them we can handle ourselves.
But there are two big questions looming over our decision to leave again in just 2 short months. One, our exhaust leak, and two, our house battery system. Are these issues stable enough to get us south, or are they critical enough to keep us home and on the hard this winter? How quickly can we get them fixed or get some solid answers? We have some big questions to answer, but one thing we know for sure is our hearts are somewhere, out there, and sometimes that's all it takes.